When you think of a real man, what comes to mind? A man who stands tall, who commands respect, or perhaps one who never backs down from a challenge? But let me ask you this, when faced with disrespect, how does a real man respond? Does he raise his voice? Does he argue to prove a point? No. A real man doesn't argue, he acts. You see, the moment you start arguing, you've already lost. The essence of a true man is not in defending his ego, but in maintaining his integrity, in protecting his peace. Arguing only diminishes your power. It strips you of the authority you were born with. You were not created to engage in endless battles over pride. No, you were created to stand firm, to remain unmoved, to operate from a place of wisdom. And so, every man has a choice. Will you argue for your dignity, or will you elevate your actions to show that you know who you are and whose you are? A real man doesn't argue. He leads with wisdom and calm. In today's world, it's easy to get caught up in the noise of everyday life. People shout louder to be heard, fight harder to make a point, and engage in endless back and forths, all in an effort to feel validated. But what if I told you that the true measure of a man is not in his ability to argue, but in his ability to remain calm in the midst of conflict? Consider the story of King Solomon. He was known for his wisdom, and his wisdom didn't come from his ability to argue his way out of situations, but rather from his ability to listen and discern the right course of action. When two women came to him, each claiming to be the mother of the same child, Solomon didn't raise his voice or demand that they both prove their claims. Instead, he proposed to cut the child in half and give each woman a piece. The real mother, moved by compassion, immediately offered to give up her claim to save the child. Solomon, in that moment, didn't need to argue. He let wisdom speak for itself. He didn't engage in an emotional confrontation. He led with calmness and understanding. In his silence, in his restraint, he found the truth. What we see here is that a real man doesn't need to prove himself through loud words or unnecessary conflict. Instead, he proves his strength by his ability to remain steady in turbulent times. We are often tempted to react immediately when we feel disrespected or hurt. But is this the best response? How many times have you entered into an argument only to realize afterward that your words cause more harm than good? A real man understands that his value is not determined by the approval of others, but by the calm authority he carries within. Take a moment to reflect. How many conflicts in your life could have been avoided if you had simply chosen to remain silent and respond with wisdom rather than reacting in anger? Proverbs 15:1 tells us a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. This verse isn't suggesting that you should remain silent out of fear or submission, but rather that true power is found in knowing when to speak and when to hold your peace. The one who is quick to argue often reveals insecurity, while the one who chooses silence reveals strength. In real life, this principle applies in countless situations. Think of a workplace conflict, a disagreement with a friend, or a tense moment in a relationship. How often do we feel the need to argue to prove we are right? Yet, in the heat of the moment, our words can escalate the situation instead of resolving it. A real man leads by de-escalating, by choosing to step back, assess the situation, and respond with wisdom rather than impulsively defending his pride. Even in Jesus' life, we see this principle at work. When he was questioned by the Pharisees, when accusations were made against him, he didn't argue, he didn't defend himself with words. Instead, he responded with silence, or with a question that made his accusers reflect on their own intentions. In Matthew 27:12 and 14, it's noted that Jesus gave no answer, not even to a single charge. And Pilate was amazed. Why? Because Jesus understood that not every battle needed to be fought with words. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. Imagine for a moment what would happen in your life if you chose to respond to disrespect, to challenge with wisdom and calm. What if, instead of reacting to every insult or provocation, you took a step back, centered yourself, and allowed your actions to speak louder than your words? How much peace would you experience in your relationships? How much respect would you earn from others who see you operate from a place of strength rather than ego? Disrespect is a test of character, not a call for battle. When someone disrespects you, they are not just challenging your actions or your words, they are challenging the essence of who you are. How you respond to disrespect speaks volumes about your true character. In a world where reactions are often driven by emotion, a real man understands that this is the moment where he must rise above the situation, not lower himself to it. Think about the times when you've been disrespected. How did you feel in those moments? Were you tempted to defend yourself, to retaliate, to prove that you deserve respect? This is a natural human response, but it's also one that keeps us trapped in cycles of conflict. The temptation is strong to argue, to lash out, to defend our honor, but the real strength lies in recognizing that disrespect doesn't diminish your value unless you allow it to. Let's reflect on a biblical story of David and Saul. In 1 Samuel 24, David, who was anointed to be king, found himself on the run, hiding from King Saul, who sought to kill him out of jealousy. One day, David had the perfect opportunity to retaliate. Saul, while hunting him, entered a cave where David and his men were hiding. His men encouraged David to take advantage of the moment, to kill Saul and end his suffering once and for all. But David, instead of attacking Saul, cut off a piece of Saul's robe to show that he had the power to harm him, but chose not to. When Saul left the cave, David called after him and showed him the piece of cloth, explaining that he could have killed him, but chose mercy instead. David's response wasn't driven by weakness. It was driven by wisdom. He understood that his character, his dignity, and his calling were not defined by how Saul treated him, but by how he chose to respond. David had the power to strike back, but he chose not to engage in the battle of disrespect. Instead, he chose to rise above it and trust in God's timing. His response demonstrated that true strength isn't in reacting in anger or fear. It's in knowing that your worth is not determined by another person's actions, but by your ability to maintain integrity. In life, how often do we allow someone's disrespect to define us? Think of a workplace scenario where a colleague undermines your efforts or a friend says something hurtful. In those moments, it's easy to want to prove them wrong, to get back at them, to show them that you are worthy of respect. But the question we must ask ourselves is this: does engaging in that battle truly honor who we are? Or does it bring us down to the level of those who disrespect us? Jesus offers another example of handling disrespect with grace. In Matthew 26:67, during his trial, he was spat upon, slapped, and mocked. And yet, he didn't retaliate. He didn't argue his case in the way the world would expect. He didn't fight back with words or force. Instead, he chose silence, knowing that his Father would vindicate him. His example shows us that there is a greater power in choosing not to engage in every battle. Jesus didn't need to argue his worth. His actions, his life, and his purpose spoke for him. Think about this for a moment. When you engage in a fight over disrespect, are you defending your ego or are you defending your purpose? Are you proving something to the other person or are you proving something to yourself? A real man doesn't need to fight to prove his value. He understands that disrespect is an opportunity to demonstrate his strength, his maturity, and his ability to remain rooted in his purpose. The battle isn't with the person disrespecting you. It's with your own impulses and reactions. Will you lower yourself to the level of disrespect, or will you rise above it? A real man understands that respect is earned, not demanded. It is a byproduct of living with integrity, humility, and wisdom. And when disrespect comes, it's a reminder that the journey of self-mastery is ongoing. The real battle is not against the one who disrespects you, but against the temptation to react in a way that diminishes your own character. So the next time you face disrespect, ask yourself, am I going to let this moment define my response, or will I define how I respond? True strength is displayed in self-control, not in retaliation. It's easy to mistake a powerful reaction for true strength. The world often teaches that the louder you are, the stronger you are. The more you fight back, the more dominant you appear. But true strength, the kind that lasts, is found in the ability to control yourself when everything within you wants to explode. The real power lies not in how fiercely you respond, but in how carefully you choose your action. Think about the story of Joseph in the Bible. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit. If anyone had a reason to retaliate, it was Joseph. Yet, when given the opportunity to take revenge, when he was second in command in Egypt and his brothers came to him seeking help, Joseph chose a different path. Instead of punishing them for their betrayal, he embraced them, forgave them, and even provided for them during a time of famine. It demonstrated strength not by seeking revenge, but by choosing to rise above the situation and show mercy. Joseph understood that true strength isn't about striking back in the heat of the moment. It's about controlling your emotions, walking in wisdom, and choosing the high road. What Joseph did wasn't weakness, it was power under control. Self-control is not the absence of power. It is the ability to direct that power for good, even when you feel justified in using it for harm. How many times do we, in moments of anger or hurt, allow our emotions to dictate our actions only to regret the consequences afterward? We've all been there, on the edge of saying something we know we shouldn't, or acting impulsively in a way that we later wish we could take back. But true strength, as Joseph's story illustrates, is found in restraint, in knowing that your ability to hold back is a reflection of the maturity within you. In real life, we often face situations where retaliation seems justified. It's natural to feel the need to defend yourself when someone wrongs you. But consider this. Does reacting out of anger or frustration really solve the problem? Or does it escalate the situation? The truth is, responding with harsh words or actions in the heat of the moment often only deepens the divide. In Proverbs 14:29, it says, "Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly." This verse reminds us that the impulsive reaction is really the wise choice. It takes true strength to exercise patience, to pause, and to allow wisdom to guide your actions. Self-restraint is not a passive act. It requires strength, discipline, and a deep understanding of your purpose. It means recognizing that you are more than your immediate emotions and reactions. In moments of conflict or disrespect, the real battle is within yourself. Will you allow your impulses to control you, or will you exercise restraint and choose a higher response? A real man knows that his emotions do not dictate his actions. He is not driven by a need for immediate gratification or revenge, but by a deeper understanding of his goals, his integrity, and his responsibility to others. Consider this in your personal life. When was the last time you faced an opportunity to retaliate, whether in a conversation, a misunderstanding, or an unfair situation, and chose to control your response instead? The moments when we feel most justified in lashing out are often the very moments where we can demonstrate the most strength. How you respond in these situations determines your growth and your future. Do you respond with wisdom, or do you let anger rule you? The ability to control your response is a reflection of your maturity and your commitment to your purpose. Jesus, in his life and ministry, exemplified this power of self-control. Even when he was mocked, beaten, and crucified, he chose not to retaliate. In Acts Genesis 14:23, it says, when they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly. Jesus understood that self-control was not about weakness. It was about trusting in God's plan and knowing that ultimate justice was not in his hands, but in God's. He demonstrated that real strength is trusting that you don't have to fight every battle. Some battles are best left to God. So next time you are faced with disrespect, a challenge, or a moment of conflict, ask yourself, how can I respond with self-control? How can I rise above the situation and choose to lead with wisdom and grace? True strength isn't about showing how powerful you are in the moment. It's about the strength to control your response and demonstrate maturity, patience, and wisdom in the face of adversity. A real man understands that actions speak louder than words. In today's world, it's easy to get caught up in saying the right things, in making promises, or even in defending oneself with words. But the truth is, words are cheap. It's not what you say, but what you do that defines you. In fact, the weight of your words is often measured by the actions that follow them. This principle can be seen throughout Scripture, in the lives of those who understood the power of their actions over their speech. Take, for example, the life of Nehemiah. In the book of Nehemiah, we see a man who had a vision to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. But he didn't just talk about it, he acted on it. Nehemiah didn't gather a team and simply give motivational speeches about the importance of rebuilding. He led by example. When he faced opposition, he didn't retreat or argue with his critics. Instead, he continued to work, showing his commitment through action. In Nehemiah 2:18, he says, "Let us start rebuilding." It wasn't just a statement. It was a call to action. Nehemiah's leadership wasn't defined by what he said, but by what he did. His actions inspired others to follow, and the wall was rebuilt in just 52 days. This speaks to the power of action. When Nehemiah spoke, his words had weight because they were followed by tangible effort. He didn't just promise change, he made it happen. How many times do we find ourselves in situations where we speak about our intentions, our goals, or our desires, but fail to follow through? We talk about becoming better, achieving more, or changing our circumstances, but our actions don't align with our words. A real man understands that true leadership is found in the consistency of his actions, not just in his ability to talk the talk. In real life, how many of us have seen promises made with the best of intentions, only to watch them go unfulfilled because the words weren't backed by real effort? Think of a workplace scenario where someone promises to improve their performance but never takes the necessary steps to make it happen. Or a personal relationship where one partner promises to change, but the actions don't follow. Words without action are like seeds that are never planted. They may sound good, but they fail to produce fruit. A real man doesn't just speak of his values, he lives them out. His actions consistently reflect his beliefs, and this builds trust and credibility. Jesus taught this principle clearly in the parable of the two sons in Matthew 21, 28 through 32. In this parable, one son said he would work in the vineyard but didn't go, while the other son initially refused but later changed his mind and went to work. Jesus pointed out that the one who did the work was the one who truly obeyed the Father. It's a simple yet profound reminder that actions carry more weight than promises. Anyone can speak words of commitment, but the true measure of a man's character is in his actions, in what he does when no one is watching, in the consistency between what he says and what he does. Think about your own life. How many times have you said you would do something but didn't follow through? We all have experienced this at some point. But it's the man who consistently backs his words with his actions who earns respect and trust. In the business world, the most successful leaders are often those who don't just talk about their vision, they actively work toward it. In personal relationships, the person who shows love through acts of service, through sacrifice, and through genuine effort speaks more loudly than the one who merely says, "I love you." There's a deep truth in this principle when we look at the life of Jesus. He didn't just talk about love, he showed it through his actions. He healed the sick, fed the hungry, and ultimately gave his life for humanity. His actions spoke far louder than his words. In John 13, 34, 35, he said, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." Jesus didn't just tell people to love, he demonstrated it in the most profound way possible. His actions proved his words. So, when you find yourself in a moment of conflict or a moment when you need to prove your worth, remember this. Words alone will not make a lasting impact. What you do, the integrity in your actions, the consistency in your behavior, the way you show up when it counts, will speak volumes. A real man doesn't just talk about change, he brings it about. He doesn't just talk about leadership, he leads. And in doing so, he earns the trust, respect, and admiration of those around him. The mastery of self is the foundation of true power. In a world that often emphasizes external achievements, wealth, and influence, it's easy to overlook the power that comes from within. The most powerful people are not those who can control others, but those who have mastered themselves. A real man understands that self-mastery is the bedrock of all other success. It is the ability to control your impulses, thoughts, and emotions, and to live in alignment with your true purpose and value. Think about the story of Samson. While Samson had physical strength beyond measure, he lacked control over his desires, and ultimately this led to his downfall. His inability to master his emotions, particularly his lust for Delilah, ultimately led to his capture and the loss of his strength. Samson's story teaches us that external strength means little if it is not supported by internal strength. A man who cannot control his impulses, his desires, or his anger will never fully walk in the power that he was created for. True power comes from being able to say no when necessary, to control your actions even when everything within you is calling for a different response. In real life, we often face moments where our impulses try to control us. Whether it's the temptation to lash out in anger, to indulge in unhealthy habits, or to give in to the pressures of others. The true test of our character is not in what happens when things are going well, but in how we handle ourselves when we are tested. Think about a time when you were tempted to make a rash decision, whether it was reacting to someone who disrespected you, indulging in something you knew wasn't good for you, or even giving in to a moment of laziness or procrastination. How often do we allow our momentary emotions to dictate our actions? Self-mastery is the ability to recognize these moments and choose a different path, a path that aligns with your true values and purpose. The Bible speaks frequently about the importance of self-control. In Proverbs 16:32, it says, "Better a patient person than a warrior, those with self-control than those who take a city." This verse speaks volumes about the value of self-mastery. It tells us that controlling our own emotions, thoughts, and actions is greater than having the power to conquer nations. It is through mastering ourselves that we achieve the highest form of strength. It's easy to think that a man's strength lies in his ability to dominate external circumstances or others, but the real strength lies in his ability to master the internal battles, the thoughts, emotions, and reactions that arise from within. So if you're TikTok, take a moment to reflect on the people you respect most. What do they all have in common? I would venture to say that the people who inspire respect are those who exhibit a strong sense of self-control. Whether it's a parent who remains calm in a stressful situation, a leader who consistently shows integrity, or a mentor who guides others with wisdom, these are the individuals who have mastered themselves. They don't react impulsively to challenges. They respond with patience, wisdom, and self-discipline. These are the individuals whose strength is not determined by external circumstances, but by their inner control and clarity of purpose. Self-mastery is not an overnight achievement. It is a lifelong process, one that requires constant effort and reflection. In Galatians 5:22, verse 23, we are reminded of the fruits of the Spirit, one of which is self-control. This means that self-mastery is not just a product of willpower. It is a result of being led by the Spirit, being grounded in your values, and being aligned with a higher purpose. A real man understands that true power does not come from controlling others, but from cultivating the ability to control himself, his desires, and his actions. In the world, we are often taught to strive for external success, financial gain, career advancement, social status. But these external factors are fleeting. True, lasting power comes from within, from the ability to remain grounded, focused, and committed to your purpose, regardless of external circumstances. Think of athletes or successful entrepreneurs who achieve greatness. Their success is not just due to their talent, but to their discipline, their ability to push through challenges, and their refusal to be swayed by distractions or temporary setbacks. These individuals demonstrate the power of self-mastery in their ability to stay focused on their goals, to remain disciplined even when it's difficult, and to maintain control over their emotions and actions. So, in moments of frustration, challenge, or temptation, ask yourself, am I mastering myself, or am I allowing my circumstances to dictate my response? The real power comes when we can remain calm in the storm, when we can choose our response thoughtfully, and when we can hold true to our values, even in the face of adversity. Self-mastery is not just about saying yes to the life you are meant to lead, a life of integrity, purpose, and strength. In conclusion, the true measure of a man is not found in his ability to argue, to retaliate, or to control others, but in his strength to master himself. A real man understands that respect is earned through integrity, wisdom, and grace, not through confrontation. He knows that actions speak louder than words, and that his true power lies in the self-control he exercises in moments of challenge. It's not in the battles you fight with others that define your strength, but in the battles you fight within yourself. So, as you go forth from this moment, remember that the real tests will come not in the words you speak, but in the actions you take and the way you choose to respond when faced with disrespect or difficulty. May you find the strength to rise above, to master yourself, and to lead with integrity in all that you do. Good luck on your journey, and thank you for listening. May your path be filled with wisdom, peace, and the strength to walk in your true purpose.